Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we're tackling a refresh on Laila here. This is our 2013 Toyota Avalon. Laila has been a part of the family as long as I've known my wife. And Laila here is the first and only car that my wife has ever owned. So we want to preserve the life of her. We want to make sure that she lasts 300,000 plus miles. Right now she has about 158,000. So it's time for oil change, for shocks all the way around, tires in the rear, window tint replacement, headlight replacement, headlight lens replacement, and a front bumper repaint. While I'm at it, I want to try to find one way to make this a little more one of one. So I'm going to take the opportunity to do some type of chrome delete, maybe on the fog light bezels, the main grille, and maybe the grille surround underneath here. So we'll get this in the garage, we'll pop the bumper off, we'll pop the headlights out, and I'll show you a few cool things in how we're going to get this done on the cheap. Now, if you were to take this to a shop and to have all of that done, you'll be easily spending a couple $1,000. But we're going to try to do everything here for under $850. Now, there's some things that I'm going to be able to do myself, but stuff like mounting the tires, those are fixed costs. I don't have a tire machine yet, so I can't do that here. But I think between the prices of everything that we've gathered so far, we can get right under budget. So fingers crossed, let's hop to it. Taking a look at these cup holder rings, I've scratched my hands more times than I care to admit on this flaking chrome. So I'm gonna get everything off and then see if I can scrape it off and try to make it a little bit better to deal with. These Avalons also have a type of underglow to it. So after I clean everything up, I can take a look at this LED bulb here, fix anything that needs to be fixed, and get it reassembled. Here I am taking my blade, just carefully crafting it, and then we should be getting rid of all of that. Now I need to take off this armrest. There are staples all around this thing, so I just take a small flat-headed screwdriver, carefully pry up on everything, and get it all off. I ordered this replacement cover from eBay. I'm not entirely happy with the color match, but the material feels to be good quality, so I'm gonna stick with it. Hindsight being 2020, I would have ordered black. That way it would have went with the rest of the interior and not create that stark contrast. But now I got everything stapled up. I didn't need to use adhesive on here, and I just used my heat gun over it really carefully, making sure not to burn anything, but to get rid of some of those creases and folds. Here we are, looking pretty good. Now I also need to take off the driver door panel and get at this armrest. So there are about 6 screws and then 2 plastic weld-on nuts. And once we cut those out of the way and remove those screws, I'll have access to it. Same thing here. No need to remove adhesive, just need to remove those staples, and now I was able to peel everything off. Now you can go with Super 77. I chose not to, and I just really concentrated on getting that stitch straight, and everything else just fell into place. Here's how everything turned out. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, with most of the early morning gone, I need to switch over to the bumper and kind of get all of that stuff off before I start to work on the suspension. So there are 10mm bolts across the front to remove the splash shield from the bumper. I got those off. Then there's a bunch of retaining clips all across the radiator retention cover. So I got all of that out of the way, popped all of those clips out of the way. And then I was able to remove the turn signal plugs and the fog light plugs. Then there are also 3 10mm bolts on each side for the headlights. I need to get those off and get them out of the way as well. I'm really excited to see how these headlights turn out because I'm doing something there never done before. I wanted to get that done outside where I have a lot of room. Now we're gonna push back inside the garage and start to tackle the suspension. Now the process to change out these shocks are relatively simple, but it took me a little bit longer than I expected. To start off, I removed the caliper, the 2 bolts that are holding it to the knuckle, the sway bar end link, this retention bracket here, and the 3 bolts up at the top holding everything together. Now, like I said earlier, this car has 158,000 miles, and the shocks and the shock mounts were never replaced on it. So I'm curious to see if the ride is going to improve once I replace all of these parts. I'm usually skeptical of low buck parts, but I found a set of 4 on eBay with the spring for $283. It had great reviews on it, so I had to take a chance. I did run into an issue as I was finishing up the removal. The sway bar end link was ripped and torn. Definitely couldn't reuse it on our car, so had to run out and get some replacements. But once I did, I was able to zip everything back together, and the fronts are all set. Now the rears can be a little bit more tricky because you have to go into the interior to unbolt some things, starting with those 3 bolts at the top. We also have that rear end link, the retention bracket for the brake hose, the retention bracket for the ABS speed sensor, and the 2 large bolts for the knuckle. Don't forget about your brakes too. I didn't hear any squeaks or anything coming from these shocks after all of these miles of use, so I'm curious to see if they have any rebound in them once I get everything disassembled. A quick way to get access to the interior bolts: just go ahead and disconnect the rear seat heaters if equipped. I was able to pull straight up on the seat to get that out of the way. There are 4 15mm bolts across the bottom, and once I remove that, I can get the top piece out of the way. If you look behind the jute padding, you'll see those top 3 bolts for the mount. Get those right out of the way, and everything will fall right out. Once everything is bolted up, it should look like this. All right, so all 4 of the shocks have been replaced. I also had to replace the sway bar end links because those are all rusty and boots were torn. And it is 4:30. So I am way behind schedule. I wanted to be able to have paint on this thing in like 30 minutes. And then of course I still got to do the headlights. So let me rush this car outside. We'll start to get the bumper sanded and then we'll start to make the box. All right, so it's 7:15. I finally got everything painted and it looks great. Check it out. It is a relentless pursuit to try to paint glass and get like really smooth clear on there. I still got a ways to go on that, but in the end, I'll probably be wet sanding and buffing that to get a good finish. I also took the opportunity to spray paint the lower section of the front bumper. So now the only chrome that's on the vehicle is around the windows and around the Toyota logo. I think it looks pretty good. Headlights are like the eyes of a car. So when they're dirty and dingy, they don't look good and they don't perform the way they should. Here's what the car looks like driving late at night with low beam and high beam lights on. Believe me, they look a lot worse behind the wheel. But with replacements edging between $1,100 and $1,900, I needed to find a cost-effective solution that wouldn't blow the budget. The reason why these are so expensive is Laila uses HID headlights. They're a lot better performing than the halogen headlights that the base models usually have, at the expense of costing a whole lot more money. So I found these $275 headlights on eBay, and I plan to bake them to remove the lens and put them back on my Toyota factory housings. Let's see how it works. All right, so I'm using a tall wardrobe from Home Depot, 20 by 20 by 39, and I've gotten everything set up. The double flap that's here is going to be perfect for inserting and removing the headlight. And we have to add additional cardboard just to cover up these holes. We don't want heat escaping that easily. So I'll just take a box flap and then bring it over all of this, and we'll have a airtight box. And here's my box fully assembled. I plan to use this as the oven for the headlights. I went to my local stationery store, picked up that mailing tube, and that'll be perfect for the heat gun that'll eventually go in there. This flap works well as my oven door, and here's what it looks like inside as I cut that opening for that tube, and now I can add a couple rings just to serve as a metallic base for the headlight to sit on. So here are my headlights, some additional tools that you'll need, infrared heat gun, some prying tools, flathead screwdriver, wire cutters, heat gun, scissors, and butyl tape. And just look at the difference between the old and the new. I can't wait to get this new lens on top of the factory housing that I already have. So now I'm gonna start to preheat things. I've got my heat gun in there set on max, and I got my turkey thermometer set, and I'm trying to get over 200 degrees. If I get somewhere around 220, that's when I can pop the headlight in, and I can wait about 14 minutes for the new one. All right, we are getting closer to that 220 number. In a moment, we'll pop it in. We'll wait 14 minutes for the new headlight, but we'll have to wait 25 minutes for the old headlight. Those tend to take a little bit longer for the glue to melt. All right, so I kept it in there for about 14 minutes at about 210 degrees, and now I'm ready to start to pry things apart. Start off from the bottom of the headlight first. You don't know how things are gonna separate. If you have any pry marks at all, it's going to be likely when you're first learning how to do this. So start from the bottom where it's not gonna be seen. As soon as you bend those tabs open, take the wide, flat tools and try to get in there. The lens is pretty deep into the housing. I'd say maybe 3/8 of an inch, maybe even a little bit more in certain sections. So just be patient, work along the perimeter, and you'll start to see daylight at the other end of that tunnel. Seeing the lens separate and that adhesive melt away is just so satisfying. I'm really glad I started off with the aftermarket headlight assembly first, because it gave me a really good idea of how to work it. And the last thing I want to do is to damage the housing of the Toyota OEM ones. After all that, I got my butyl tape ready. I'm going to use this to serve as some additional adhesive to reseal the light when it comes to that point. Now, heat and patience were the biggest tools that I had to use here, because I had to heat this up for, like I said, 25 minutes to start to get things separated. I don't know what Toyota was using on these, but it's really high quality stuff. But once I got in there, I was able to start to separate things, and slowly but surely, it all came together. Or technically it came apart. I guess it depends on how you look at it. The lens is the only thing that's compatible between the halogen and the HID headlights. So once I had the lens separated, I needed to remove the inner workings of it and make sure those carry over to the new headlight that I'm putting together as well. The daytime running light is totally different between the two. So once I was able to screw the existing one into the new lens, then I was able to apply that butyl tape and get everything resealed. But one key tip on the butyl tape, make sure you warm it up. It'll only help things when you go to push everything back together. Now, to make sure things don't leak, I use a combination of C-clamps and vice grips just to apply tension across the entire headlight and make sure that I can keep that on there for several hours. This first one I did overnight, and then the second one in the morning, I did for a couple of hours. All right, so it is the next day and we're coming down to the wire. We've got the Avalon outside, face is still removed. I got my bumper over there. Everything looks dry. There's a couple imperfections on it, but when I get to the setting and buffing stage, I'll be able to take care of all of that. I got my oven outside, everything is preheating, and I'm getting ready to install the second headlight in there now. So once we get that in there, we'll give it maybe about 20 to 25 minutes, because this is the old one, and let that glue really set up and get soft, and then we can remove that one, all the while still putting on the grills and all the lights and everything like that into the bumper. so beautiful. All right, so I'm on my way to get tires. I am running late, so it's not gonna happen in time. Unfortunately, my plan was to be able to have all of this done by 11 a.m. and it's 9:30 right now. And I highly doubt that they'll be able to do 2 tires, an alignment, and new TPMS sensors and reset it all in an hour. So I missed it, but I missed it by this much. And I'm a little bummed because not only did I have all that planned, I also wanted to redo the front window tint because I got a slight peel there. But I'm very proud of what I did. I was able to accomplish a lot. The car drives amazing, it looks great, and it's gonna be even better once we got the new tires on and everything dialed in. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate you all tuning in. If you like this is a little something different. I've done the 24-hour challenge before, and I really like it. It's a great opportunity to test my skills, and not only on wrenching, but also order of operations. So we can actually maximize the vehicle the most. And I would have been able to get everything done if I was comfortable taking the vehicle to the mechanic without the bumper and headlights in, because they could have done all that work yesterday while I took care of respraying the bumper and taking care of the headlights. But you live and you learn. But appreciate all your love and support. Talk to you in the next one.